Amidst a changing music industry, a growing local music culture is striving to define itself. On Saturday, August 30th, music industry experts are coming to Columbus to discuss how a creative city could become a music city. Do you believe that local music is valuable? Have you wondered how Columbus could grow its music economy? We're calling all musicians, entrepreneurs, and innovators to join the discussion. How to Build a Music City, a music panel discussion at Gateway Film Center. Seats are limited, tickets available at howtobuildamusiccity.com.
I think we'd like to start with this idea of a music city. And I'd like to, at this point, invite the panel to weigh in a little bit on what that means, what it looks like when you have one, maybe more importantly, what it looks like when you're about to have one. And so why don't we start, Wendy, would you like to start?
Sure. Good morning. I'm the only person in the room that's never been to Columbus. I've been here for a couple of days and it's a beautiful city. And I will say that one of the things I first noticed when I walked up the airplane is I immediately felt a sense of art. And I was welcomed in the airport with art. And whether it was the billboard for your art museum or just beautiful art in your airport, it just sort of welcomed me to the city knowing there's creativity here. And I have to say, you see that in other cities as well, like Austin. You get off the plane in Austin, there's local musicians performing in the airport. There was a local musician performing in the airport as well yesterday in Columbus, which I thought was kind of cool. He was playing covers, not original music, but nonetheless it was music, which I thought was also very cool and very welcoming to an outsider. And that to me is what a creative city is. It is a city that has beautiful music and who supports its music. And if you can make a living, obviously, making music, then you'll stay here. It's all about trying to make a living, right? As a music maker or somebody in the business of music. So I think that's really what this conversation is about, is how do you get the creative people in this community to stay here and to build a community that's rich with not just with great music, but also rich with supporters who will pay for it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it is really all about finding ways to create revenue streams for yourself. In this day and age in the music industry, obviously, it's not. Back in the day, we were talking earlier at breakfast about everyone sort of still has the idea in their mind that if they're playing on the street somewhere, some record executive is going to pluck you up and love you, and then you're going to get a huge check. And that's just, maybe that happened back in the day, maybe it didn't. It's sort of like a myth, but it's definitely a myth these days. That stuff kind of doesn't really happen. But there's so many opportunities now, and it can be kind of overwhelming. Which direction do I take? How do I, do I start trying to write jingles only? Do I want to be a touring performer? Do I want to be like a YouTube sensation? I think, it's about you asking yourself those questions and seeing what works for you, trying different things, but it's probably going to be a combination of a lot of those things. So it's about learning what the opportunities are and which opportunities work for you.
And not just on the creative end, but on the business end of things. I mean, many musicians, we were talking earlier, both Tim and I have music backgrounds. We started out as musicians and we ended up working in the music business. But, to support great creativity is also, and making money, you have to have a business infrastructure somehow, some way in your industry, whether it's having a great recording studio that produces music, or a great company like a music dealers moving into Columbus, Ohio to create music using the local music scenes, a terrific radio station to support the music publishers, managers, attorneys who understand the business. It's a much bigger pie than you can imagine. It's not just about the singer-songwriter, it's all the pieces that go along with it to support a career.
Yeah. Can I ask a question, actually, to the audience, maybe? Just like a show of hands, like Brooke was speaking about intellectual property. One of the first things I learned when I kind of made the transition into working kind of on the business side a little more is what rights do I even own? Like, do you guys really have who in here thinks that they have a good grasp on like the master side or the publishing side of your own music? Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, that's where you start out. I mean, like, that's where you actually make money. That's where the business side comes into play. That's what you're selling when you're doing, like, I work in licensing, so that means, syncing music up against a picture for a commercial or a video game and all that type of stuff. There's a lot of money in that, and what you're really buying, or renting, really, is the rights to either the recording or the songwriting intellectual property. So that's a great first step to figuring out which direction to take. Like I was saying before, is like, what do I even own? Like, what am I selling? It's not just someone falling in love with your vibe, It's it's unfortunately you have to think about it a little bit more like an entrepreneur, like you were saying. But it's true, man. Like, and he was so right about the beauty in thinking a little bit more in a business sense is that hopefully it turns into some money. Hopefully that means that you don't have to work some shit job that you probably don't like to do. You can spend a little bit more time being creative and making better music, which hopefully will snowball into more money and better music for all of us to enjoy as well.
Brandy, probably more than anybody else in this panel, you have a perspective about music in Columbus. Is Columbus a music city?
Well, that's, I was having a conversation a little earlier with Doug Kreidler. I don't know if Doug's still here. Doug's the head of the Columbus Foundation. And the questions posed, how do we build a music city? And I'll be the first one to say, we are a music city. And we just need to tell people we're a music city. I mean, if you tell people something long enough and loud enough, well, then they'll believe it. We are a music city. I've watched bands come through here. I've watched the local scene thrive and grow. I see the buy-in from the entrepreneurs that are being funded by, whatever programs they are. I don't see the musicians on the streets struggling. I see them actually thriving. I see music venues open. I see Scully's, I see Ace of Cups, I see Kobo, I see these things coming, and I see more opening every day. So we are a music city. We just need to take credit for that fact. And I really don't believe that we have a problem with being a music city. I think we just need to coordinate our efforts just a little bit better, and we are exactly what we want to be, a music city. We just need to get the people that are in charge of the city to say that. When they go out and say, we're an art city, we're a cultural diversity, we're an open city. Mayor Coleman can stand right up there and say, we're a music city. And guess what? We are that.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I'm actually from Cincinnati. I grew up there, played a lot of music there. I used to come and play music up in Columbus a lot. And I haven't been here in a long time. And I have to say, getting off the plane, it felt like that. Like, it feels like a music city. I was very, very surprised, and I couldn't agree with you more. So yeah, it's about taking that momentum and just pushing it more. It's about infrastructure, I think, more than anything. Getting the word out to the rest of the country and the world, really.
So maybe what needs to happen is a really strong conversation with your mayor and your tourism department to promote what you guys have going on here musically so that the word is out. I mean, certainly this weekend is very special because outside of my hotel room, I hear music banging until, I don't know if it's like that every weekend or if it's just...
I actually don't even think we have to have a strong conversation. We just need to say, hey, when you promote us as a music city as well.
Yeah.
And they'll do it. I mean, I know they will. The mayor will do it. The powers that be, Experience Columbus will do it. They already believe in everything that goes on in the city, and music is just part of the culture, the arts culture that is so ingrained in what makes Columbus great.
Mm-hmm.
So I just say we just need to take credit for the fact that we are and coordinate the
get
efforts.
a group together to really seriously, talk to the mayor and maybe the mayor personally, Mr. Coleman, and say, hey, do it, speak about us as a music city. I mean, it's a long-term marketing campaign. I mean, I'm in the biggest city of the country, in New York City, and we have a problem. we have a problem that people don't really always think of us as a music city. They think of us as Broadway. And there's a big commission and a big tourist, all of our tourist energy and efforts and money goes into promoting I Love New York Broadway. And meanwhile, we have this thriving independent music scene that happens down in Greenwich Village and in Williamsburg and in all the boroughs downtown. There's tons of music, there's music schools and what have you, but it's not something that is promoted. We've never really focused on trying to get a campaign going. And it wasn't until recently that we just discovered, my God, we haven't been tooting our own horn. We haven't been reaching out to the right people and the politicos in our city to help us promote what we have already and to get the tourism into downtown New York City to see our music. Welcome to New York. Why don't you come downtown and meet the next Bono or whatever? Something to promote what our city is. And we have a big group of people who are trying to, actually it's not a big group, it's a small group of people who are really trying to build this conversation with our politicos and trying to get a music commissioner in New York City who will oversee all of these efforts and try to offer incentives and stuff to our musicians in New York. Because if you can believe this, New York City doesn't have a music commissioner. And the reason we don't have a music commissioner is because nobody asked for one. And it wasn't until recently, until this group that we have in New York City, finally came to the terms with the fact that, my God, what's going on with our business? We're in a crisis situation in New York City. Many people are leaving. They're going to Los Angeles and Nashville to find work. It's become so expensive. So we have a grassroots efforts of trying to build business in our city so that we can sort of sustain and make a living, so our creative people can make a living. And part of those efforts is to try to get incentives from the government to give people tax breaks for recording music in New York City. And that's something that also that you could do here in Columbus, is try to get your city involved by offering incentives, tax breaks for people that are creating music in Columbus, who are building businesses in Columbus. If music dealers decide to come into Columbus and start a business, offer them their business taxes for free for a number of years so they can get their feet wet and really develop a business. It's a lot easier said than done. It takes more than just a village to make this happen. But this, just to let you know, we're doing this in New York City. You would have thought that would have been in place years and years ago. Many cities are very successful at this. Louisiana is successful. Austin, Texas is successful at it. California has a number of tax incentives as well. And New York is working on it. And maybe Columbus, Ohio.
Brooke, let me ask you a question. When you talk to people about the potential unfair competitive advantage that Columbus might have, does anybody ever identify music as that?
I've not heard that one yet. They talk about arts and creativity generally, and a lot of that seems to focus around design. As you look at fashion design, interior space design, graphic design, CCAD, the really strong programs at Ohio State University, the students that are coming out of there, all of the stuff in the especially retail that we have here in town. I've heard across the board a number of things, but I think part of it is, to Randy's point, is putting that out there that we are a music city and own it. A piece of that is that we have a phrase in my world. I work with people that are starting very early ventures. You fake it till you make it, and may have already made it. We're just not marketing it. That may be the case. I know in talking with other folks in the tech space that do the work that I do, we get held up and compared to Silicon Valley or LA or Silicon Alley in New York or Austin, and this may be just us deluding ourselves, but we say we're just not out there promoting ourselves. I mean, Silicon Valley and San Francisco does an amazing job of marketing the hell out of usually kind of sometimes really dumb ideas, but and just stupidly huge valuations on these dumb ideas, but they're so amazing at it. I think that's one aspect. I think the other aspect is that for music is or anything that we want to have as our sort of our brand that we're known for, is the realization that other communities, New York, LA, Austin, whatever, they've been at this for a long time. They have a concerted effort around identifying their communities as creative, artistic, technologically forward, whatever they brand it as, And it isn't something that happens overnight. It's something that takes a concerted effort by a large number of people to create the community and the ecosystem. And it takes that marketing piece, I think. In my world, the one everybody compares to is, Silicon Valley. It's the world of Google and Facebook and Apple and all that good stuff. People, and then they say, well, why aren't we like that? Well, one, there's only going to be one of those. Two, they've been at it since 1948. And a concerted, focused effort around information technology. So I think it takes that focused, concerted effort and taking the base that we have here, which I believe is very strong, things like 1025 and Songwriters Association and all the great venues that we have. You rattled several off. I know several more. There's so many, right? So many great ones and so many great bands. Just making that investment in building the infrastructure, building out that ecosystem, doing the marketing, and then knowing that it's a long-term effort and that we're in it for the long haul because this is one of the things as a community that we're going to invest in.
And I think the good news here is that, all of those cities that we're talking about that are known for music, New Orleans, New York, Austin, it all starts with the scene, right? It starts with the music scene. Like, there's a whole scene, everybody's, there's a lot of creativity coming out, and the product, music, is fantastic. So that's already happening here. So that's the good news. So it's really about how do you create, bands that become worldwide or nationally known, but also help them stay here and not have to leave, and then they can be advocates for this city. That you love a band and you find out they're from Columbus, and then all of a sudden there's like a bunch of bands that are from Columbus. Like, there must be something in the water there, So it's about you guys have the product. It sounds like, but it's about how do we get that recognition and get the word out about it.
So I think obviously you guys are talking about something more than Columbus being a place for music consumers, national product. We're also talking about the independent creation here, local music. So can we pivot slightly to talk about value in independent music? What kind of value can that produce to have a vital local independent music scene as opposed to people that'll just buy tickets to when the Red Hot Chili Peppers are on tour? What's the value of independent music?
You probably can talk about that one.
One of the things that we talk about in the office, and it's sort of a mantra, it's unspoken, and it's just part of the culture, it's part of our DNA, our makeup. How we believe in music is that every band that you have seen started as a independent local band somewhere. Okay, that is what we think. So every time we play a local band, and we put them into regular programming, I'm thinking that is the next Nirvana. That's the next Pearl Jam. That's the next U2. Because someone will do it. And that's why we focus so much every night we play local bands. We put local bands into normal rotation, just like when a record label says, we've got Foster the People's new CD. Great. I also have Joey Hepto's new CD. So Joey goes on the air also. Why not? It's great music. When Angela Pearly, these guys say, hey, here's Angela's thing. This is awesome. We put it right into rotation. We don't, okay, yeah, we'll put it on at, after 11 p.m. at night. It's on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's during morning drive. Because someone has to help promote that, because that will be the next U2. Next thing you know, Angela Pearl's going to be, I don't know, she's going to be like Bits and the Tantrums playing at the, I don't know, something like Wimbledon, or maybe something just happened with tennis. Gee, how does that happen? Because people support it. So, to me, independent music is nothing more than supporting bands that it is independent music. Every band was independent at some point. They had to start somewhere. The only band I know that started from nothing, that was nothing, was Marilyn Manson. He wasn't even a band. He wrote music and said, great, I sold tickets to this thing. I need to get somebody to play with me so I can make what I promised. But that's how he did it. Okay, he had poems, creepy poems that he wrote, and then sold tickets to something, and everyone bought tickets. He said, oh crap, I need to actually find musicians now, because I'm not one. So independent music to me, I believe, is every band is an independent musician. I don't care if you are just starting, you wrote your first song, and it becomes a one-hit wonder smash that you hear on the Toyota commercial, or you hear it at Blue Jackets games, or you hear it at every football stadium in the country. It started somewhere. It had to start with being independent, and it requires that someone promote it and someone believe in it. So independent music is every music to me.
Yeah, I mean, I work for a company called Music Dealers, and we exclusively deal with independent artists. We only work with people who own their own rights, or maybe work with a smaller, easy to work with label or publisher or something like that. But you know, it's kind of exactly what you're saying. I mean, I always talk about like, you know, my job is to find the right song for people who are advertising products. You know, and that sometimes that's a Rolling Stone song, but more often than not, it's probably a song from an unknown person that is probably more relevant and fresher and more interesting than that song that everybody's heard before. I mean, we always talk about, you know, at the advertising commercials, especially good commercials. Obviously, there's a lot of bad commercials that you might not want to be associated with. But you know, it's such a great way to get your music out there. I mean, bands like Phoenix are a great example of that, and like the Cadillac commercial. That's the first time I heard that band. You know, so I mean, A, it's a lot cheaper for them to do that. B, it creates discovery. It makes their brand a lot more interesting. It makes them seem more relevant. You know, like we don't like we're working with like I work for Coca-Cola. I do a lot of Coca-Cola work. They've actually been very good about you know, not just slapping a Beyonce song on a commercial that everybody already knows, and like that's not discovering anything new. You know, like it's good for both sides to use independent music. It's fresh. It helps you guys out a lot more. Like we were talking at breakfast earlier about a story we have. This artist named Anna Illis, and she is a singer-songwriter from Sweden. She lives in like a remote cabin in the middle of nowhere. She has this amazing, fantastic vibe to her that just happens to work very well with you know, certain brands. And we placed her in a large national commercial. She got about $40,000 check out of nowhere, and wrote us a letter months later saying, guys, thank you so much. Like, you literally changed my life with this. I bought a abandoned church and turned it into a recording studio that now all of my friends in my music scene are coming to record at. So like, you know, things like that, those success stories happen. You know, and I think independent music is, you know, I kind of almost hate that term, like you're saying. Like everybody, independent music just means that you haven't signed a big deal with some label. Like, what is that? You know, everybody was an independent artist, and you know, music is music, and it should be judged upon like it's how good it is. Period.
In terms of making it work, the independent musician has to pay to keep the lights on, like everybody else. And I noticed that Tim, you asked a couple minutes ago about people controlling your publishing, controlling master licensing, controlling your music, and if I saw it correctly, wasn't very many hands went up. So if you're not controlling your licensing, your publishing, your royalties in any way, basically your opportunity to make a living is to play live shows, right? I mean, that's the alternative. How many people, I'd actually like to ask the whole city right now, but I can't, so I'd like to ask of the people in this room, how many people pay their rent by their musical services and activities? So, a significant number, but by no means everyone. So kudos to you for doing it. I think for many of us, you know, I made my living as a performer for many years, but I was always a performer and something else. Sometimes that was my primary revenue stream, sometimes it was tertiary, sometimes it was, I don't know what a factor of 10 is with that word. It was a fractional, let's say. So one of the things I'd like to throw to the panel is how do, well, let's start with Linda. Let's talk about what PROs can do.
So I work for SESAC, which is one of the 3 performing rights organizations in the United States. Are most of the people in this room songwriters? So you're probably familiar with ASCAP, BMI, and SESAC, the performing rights organizations. I work for the smaller one. What's unique in the United States is that there's 3 PROs. Outside of the United States, there's only one performing rights organization for each country, and it's government regulated. In the United States, you have 3. So as a songwriter, you have a choice to join a PRO. And our primary function really is to collect royalties on behalf of our songwriter and publisher affiliates. And you know, when you write a song, you are automatically the publisher of the work. You own the whole copyright. And the copyright is split into 2 sides. Half of it is the songwriter share, half of it is the publisher share. And it is that, and you are the sole owner of both sides of this song until you assign that publishing share to a professional music publisher down the line. And in some cases, people don't do it at all. In many cases, and in fact, probably most of the clients at music dealers are all independent music publishers themselves. So just so you realize that when you are all entrepreneurs, period. As a songwriter, you are an entrepreneur. So when you're pursuing a career professionally, like many of you that rose your hands, and if you're playing out in clubs and you're making money, you're a professional. You should definitely join a performing rights organization and register your songs. And at SESAC, we require you to set up a publishing company. And there's no cost to it. You just basically clear a name and start your business. The bigger it becomes, you might want to incorporate down the line, but it's very simple in the very beginning. You could use it, you could be a sole proprietor using your social security number and set up a publishing company. And basically you register your works, it's all done online, you register your songs, and the really advantageous thing to registering your works and registering with the Performing Rights Organization, particularly in the independent market, is that performing rights organizations now pay for live performances. And you can thank SESAC for that, because SESAC was the first PRO in the US to develop a program that pays songwriters live performances. And we were doing it for many years, and finally BMI and ASCAP were like, we gotta do this because they're our competition, and our writers are really getting mad, they want one too. So all 3 societies, so if you already belong to ASCAP or BMI, and if you're a SESAC member, just know that you have to take control of your career, okay? It's a business. It's not just about playing music. You gotta put on a completely different hat. Sometimes it's uncomfortable for you, but you have to think like an entrepreneur and do your homework. You gotta join your performing rights organization, register all your songs, set up your publishing company, register your songs, and then you can register your live performances and actually get paid on them. So you literally go in and you log, I played, 4 gigs last month, and these were the venues, and these are the songs that I played, and you submit them, and then the next time the royalty distribution comes around, you're gonna get a check. You're gonna actually get paid for your live performances. And it's a pennies business. You'll hear that often. People talk about it's a pennies business because money is, distributed, and you get little checks, mailbox money, from different sources. But this is one big source that's really changed in the independent music world. Is now this live performance part of the Performing Rights Organization key. If you're getting your songs played on the radio, I mean, that's awesome. That's a whole different discussion because it's a whole different amount of money. And if you get television airplay, that's another whole different amount of money. I mean, it can be very, very lucrative when you get your songs played publicly.
You're welcome.
Exactly. I mean, you got to thank radio stations. There's 11,000 radio stations that BMI, ASCAP, and SESAC all license, and we collect those royalties and we pay them out to the writers. And that's where we get, and we license all these little venues. We license clubs, restaurants, bars, cable TV, internet, all your music that's being streamed, live streaming on the internet. We're a collection agent for songwriters and publishers. So the more you learn about this aspect, if you're a professional songwriter, join your performing rights organization, check out the websites of ASCAP, BMI, and SESAC, see which one appeals to you, and get it done, and get yourself set up and registered.
And that was actually one of the lessons I learned. I know about as much about the music business as I could have learned in the last 2 weeks since I was asked to come and speak here. But I went and talked to my artist friends, and exactly what you're talking is a SESAC member. He's a tech entrepreneur who actually performs at local clubs here in town. And he told me, he's like, I go and I register my songs. I then go and put in that I played my songs at these, and he gets a couple $100 a month in fees that show up in his mailbox for playing his own music.
Who knew that you could do that in here? Oh.
It's a new thing. It is a really wonderful thing. It's just a little something to help support the local artists while they're on their way up in their career. And you're going to earn that by, and you'll earn your money. Hopefully you're getting paid at your gigs. Hopefully you're creating CDs and you're selling CDs at your gigs. Hopefully you're maybe making a t-shirt and selling that too. I mean, I've heard some songwriters really just pull their hair out and say, I didn't get in this business to sell a fucking t-shirt. I got in this business to create music, but I'm sorry, it's come to that. In New York City and on the East Coast, we have a thriving live music touring scene because, we have all these little states that are all crumpled together, different markets. So over the course of 1 week, and a Columbus, Ohio artist could easily do this, create a tour on the East Coast, and you can hit many different markets within a number of days, instead of, driving 5 hours to this next venue and the day for that next venue, clumping your tour together and really hitting it consistently. And we have radio stations to promote it, who are probably very similar to your station, but play independent music, that love independent performers and artists, and that's another income stream too. But those on the East Coast, I just know about that area. I'm sure you have it here too. But we have very supportive fans who will actually, buy the CD, who will buy the T-shirt, who will come see the show, and who will maybe pay extra money to go see a private show, like at a house concert. We have a very thriving house concert series. Do you guys do house concerts here? Where someone, has it at their home and they invite their friends to come, and their friends all bring a potluck dish, but they, put in $20 in the hat and give it to the artist, and then everyone ends up going home buying a CD that was signed by them. People love that fan to artist connection. They love that intimate connection with an artist, particularly if you're not musical, but you just love music. They're intrigued by you. You guys are interesting. You're creating music that makes us feel something. We want to get to know you. And it's a very interesting thing how you can actually make a living at that. I could name 25 artists in my head who do this consistently, and some of them are making 6 figures a year, going up and down the East Coast, performing to their same fans, putting out records, staying in touch with their fans. Really creating a whole social media thing with their fans, a connection with their fans, and developing and growing their fan base from your $10 fan who's going to spend $10 on a CD to your $100 fan who's going to go see 4 shows, bring 5 people, and buy 4 T-shirts. Building your fan base and being very close to your fans is how you build your business. It's the entrepreneurial spirit that really helps create that. We were talking earlier about a young artist from Boston who's been very successful at this as someone for you to study. Her name is Amanda Palmer. And she's created this whole business for herself, very lucrative business, a tremendous fan base. She raised $1 million on her own campaign, $1 million. First artist to collect that kind of money from her fan base. So check her out. It can be done.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like thinking about yourself as a brand, really. Yeah. And with the most amazing product ever, because it's the most genuine, emotional connection you could possibly have. And then you have to package that properly and get that word out. I mean, selling T-shirts doesn't only make you a couple bucks. I mean, someone's just like a walking billboard around town. That's a sweet T-shirt. What is that? Oh, this band. Go to the internet, check that out, And from a brand perspective, with all of my clients who are large brands, there's nothing more attractive to them than an independent artist with a large, very loyal fan base. They can plug in and create the right kind of connection with the brand and them. That justifies both sides very much. I mean, it's finding when you're partnering with a brand in particular. It's about finding the, crossover demographics between who your fans are and who their target is. And that's, really lucrative for them as far as getting a true connection, and it's lucrative for you for money and obviously exposure too. So, I mean, that's just another angle
think about.
Thinking about yourself as a brand is I think, very, very important.
So if we turn to the verb up here on this, the how to build expression, it's clear that Randy, what you're doing at 1025 does create infrastructure for local music to advance itself. What do you think the next step is? If we could do one thing beyond that, what should it be?
See, that's where I don't think there's just one thing. Obviously, the idea of taking credit for the fact that we are a music city, I think is absolutely critical. I think it's absolutely important. And I think, yes, the artists, the songwriters, the singers, the publishers have to take their own self-sense of worth and accept the fact that they are a brand. You are your own brand, and you have to control that brand. And yes, you have to market yourself. You have to create t-shirts, and you have to, yes, I don't want to be a fucking marketer, tough. That's your job. That's what you want to do. If you want to be a brand, then you have to be a brand. You have to sell your soul. Sorry, we're whores, all of us. I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say it, okay? You have to sell your soul. It is your soul that you're putting out there. You're putting out your creativity. So you have to accept that, and it's not a bad thing. It's not. It's what you are. It's your art. It's your craft. But you have to take credit for it. And I think that's what has to happen. We all have to take credit for our own craft. You have to not feel that, well, that's a bad thing. I'm a sellout. Well, then go do something else. Go work for someone else. Okay? If you want to do your own thing, you want to be that independent contractor, well, guess what? You have to sell that to succeed to someone. Someone has to buy it. You know, someone has to pay money for it. You know, she talked about, you know, ASCAP, SESAC, BMI. We pay a lot of money to that. Okay? So, yes, register your songs. Tell people that, yes, I played this live, or I got this commercial, I did this, because, trust me, I write six-figure checks to these companies, because that's what happens. You get paid. Okay? That's the goal. So take credit for it. I think the biggest thing, honestly, is that there is the idea of creating a music commission. I know that's sort of been brought up a little bit before. That's a great idea. Okay, that's a brilliant idea. It's genius, because what that allows is, if you have questions that you need someone to answer, it's a resource. And that's the biggest thing. It's a resource. And you have to be able to have that resource available to you, especially if you're an independent artist starting out and you don't know where to ask those questions. Because, well, that's great. You told me 2 minutes ago how to publish my song. Now, where do I go find it on the internet? Because I didn't write that down, because unfortunately, Joey had one pen.
You can call me later.
I know he doesn't share it, but he only had one pen. So where do I go to that? What website do I find that information on so I can do it later? Where is that information? Where is that resource? So to me, the biggest thing was creating that music council to meet that need of the resources for the artists that are here and in the city to connect with, so they can answer those questions, have those questions answered, and then be able to fulfill their goal of becoming a successful artist, not just an artist.
Yeah, I always think about, like, if you have, I'm sure everybody's been in the situation where you have like a group of 10 people that are trying to figure out where they're trying to go tonight, and nobody really will answer it, and everyone's kind of walking around like, fuck, like it's like an hour later, you know? It's like somebody just take the reins, you know, and like have somebody be the leader. It doesn't have to be one person, but it needs to be some sort of, centralized, leader, really. Whether that's an organization or a person, so that, someone can steer the crowd and create like more momentum than just, people talking about the same thing and not knowing how to create some action behind that. And then decisions can be made and things can be moved forward. I know something me and Joey had talked about before this is an idea we kind of came up with, and hopefully we can do something similar. We'll try it out. Well, the idea is kind of to create a micro music business economy in a city like Columbus, where where there would be some sort of commission, where like the Songwriters Association, for instance, that would gather all of the local artists around and maybe through music dealers like our company, it's exactly what we do, centralize all of the publishing rights, be able to find all the music, And then also do on the same side, or on the other side, the local businesses will be incentivized by the government to only use local artists in their campaigns. And that keeps the money in the community. It keeps you guys, making money so you can stay here. You won't have to leave and try to make money somewhere else. But it also creates a more genuine connection between those brands and the bands that you probably already know here. It creates, exactly what you're saying. It's like it creates ownership. Like, this is our town. Like, all the music you hear in a local campaign in Columbus is like our local artists. Like, that would be super awesome.
And that can happen.
Yeah, I think
Because if
it's
you
not
guys-
that hard. It's
we
like,
have a really nice new hotel downtown. Okay, the Hilton was built.
yeah,
And if you go inside there, all of that art is from local Columbus artists. Okay, that was part of the deal that the Powers That Be created, part of GCAC, part of Experience Columbus. They made the Hilton, when they built that, instead of putting in their reproductions of famous artworks from all over the world, every piece of art is locally sourced. And it didn't cost them any more or any less than the art they would have spent
They just
putting in
asked.
reproductions.
They just
asked.
asked.
They just said, hey, as part of building this, let's do this, and that'll make you ingrained in this community. And you know what Hilton said? Okay,
There's
and
no
they did
reason
it.
why you shouldn't do that. Like,
And they did it. So it is possible, okay? And again, it's the same thing. Again, we're whores, ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. That's the way it works. You have to accept that. That's one of the things that you have to accept. That doesn't make us horrible people, but if you want to succeed, you have to ask. You have to raise your hand. You have to say, yes, please, I'll stand up. I will volunteer. I will do that. Now pay me.
Right, and getting your government involved, as much as we need to get governments involved, you need to get them involved so that they can help you. And we're finding that in New York City. And that just blew my mind that we didn't have it all set up because nobody asked, And when I've said before, we've had several discussions here this weekend just about the music industry, is unfortunately in the industry, we have some diversity. We have different different property owners. You have your record labels who own the record labels and the master recordings and the artists, and then you have the songwriters and the music publishers. We're not always on the same page. So unfortunately, we've gone to Washington, D.C. a number of times, and we've had different conversations, which is a real turnoff to Washington, D.C. because the politicals are like, whoa, do we go with you or do we go with you? What you guys work it out and come to us as a united front. So that's one of the challenges that we face in our industry as far as making change and making things happen in Washington, D.C., particularly with some of the digital issues that we're dealing with. But on a local level, there shouldn't be any issues at all, because it's all about creating opportunities for anybody in music and getting the government behind supporting and having a commissioner or a director of music like they have in Nashville, Tennessee. This guy's job solely is to look out for opportunities for musicians and to make sure that there are, any big decisions that are happening are not going to affect the lives of the creative community. And you do have a really cool creative community. Like last night I was out and about with Joey, hanging out, and we saw Kelly Zulo and we saw Angela Pearley, both excellent local artists here. And we were hanging out, and I felt a vibe. I don't know if it's like that often, like when you go out and you guys are all hanging out. Like, there was a great community. It reminded me a lot of when I go to Austin, Texas, and all the local musicians. I mean, you go see a show, and half the audience, not half, but a good part of it, are other musicians, like supporting each other. And that's something that you guys all need to commit to one another. You're probably already doing this, but support each other. Go out, let's become friends on Facebook, get on each other's e-list so that you can go out and, I'm going to go see you, you come see me. So you can support one another, and it gives you an opportunity to get closer to these people and to become more of a community when you're out and about seeing them. And that's what creates a scene.
Yeah, exactly.
Last words, anybody, before we throw out the questions? Those are pretty good. Why don't we go to the audience and see if there are any questions? Yes.
I just wanted, you were talking about being part of PRL and UK performance venues. I just wanted to make it clear, those venues, they also have to be part of PRL as well in order for the artists to be paid, or just any venue?
She's asking me about licensing venues. Okay, now here's the deal. If you're performing in a venue and that venue plays music every night, if their business is, is having music every night, they need to be licensed. And they need to be licensed by ASCAP, BMI, and SESAC because we all represent different catalogs. And if you're playing at what I often tell songwriters, and I really shouldn't go on record saying this, but if you're playing at your brother's restaurant, let's say, and he's just going to have a music night, don't turn in performance forms for that, because that we definitely use that information and that data that comes in from the independent artists. Our licensing force is out there. We have independent licensing people that are out looking for venues that are unlicensed that they can go license and sell a license and then make a commission check off of it. So we do have, and they'll show up. Yeah, I mean SESAC is a much different approach than BMI and ASCAP. SESAC, by the way, is much smaller. We have around 30,000 songwriters and publishers. BMI and ASCAP have 600,000 plus. And anybody can join ASCAP and BMI. SESAC's a little more selective. We want to work with really serious professional songwriters who are professionally minded. Doesn't mean you have to hit songs, just that you're serious about your career. And I'm interested in talking to anybody who's interested in learning about SESAC. I'd be happy to give you my card afterwards. But you want to make sure that you know that about that system, that it is a licensing tool. That's how we bring in the money. But also don't get the idea that they're really huge. These licenses are not huge. A small venue's license fee for like a whole year could be like $600 for a tiny venue. So it's not like there's thousands and thousands of dollars. Obviously, if it's a big venue, it is, but it's based on like the number of seats, the number of nights of music a week they perform, have music.
I wouldn't call myself a starving artist. I would call myself a frustrated artist. I listen to panels like this, and I mean, the insights are incredible. Thank you so much for being here. My question is, when I listen to these conversations, they're overwhelming, because really all I want to do is write songs and be famous. and what exactly, what I want, but what I want to go from here. And I know that I'm here in there is at the exit sign times about 50. What guys like me who are primarily creative and not administrative need to know is, how do I get there? So could you guys give some resources or some things that tell guys like me that want to maybe get there, okay, I know that I need to create revenue streams. I know that I need to get my music out there. I know that I need to do some of these things. I'm just not sure how to do it. Does that make sense?
Of course, I mean, there's a lot of things I don't know how to do too. I'm looking up something and so I'm looking at the title.
That's what a record label does.
I'm looking at the title of it.
Big or small. That's what a publisher does. That's what independent contractors do. That's what a music commission would do. It's going to provide resources that allow you to have at least direction. You might have to talk to Brooke to get funding because you have this grand idea that you want to get from here to the exit side and 50 times further. But, right, we have to provide resources for you. We try to do that when people ask at the radio station. I follow this Adam Grant sort of philosophy. I never don't volunteer. I never turn down an email. I never not have a conversation, because all that does is make the community better. Does it become overwhelming? Sure. But you know what? Saying no is not an option. So, right, where are the resources? You have to ask. You have to keep asking.
This is one thing that's kind of funny. I'm drawing parallels to sitting here realizing the same conversation, very similar to this conversation, was happening 5, 6, 7 years ago in the tech entrepreneur space. Where do I go to start my company? Where do I go to make sure my intellectual property is protected? Where do I go to get funding? Where do I go for marketing help? Right? And there are resources. it doesn't sound like there's the same level of resources for music as there are for tech. I started a group called Founders Factory. We're down in the short north, and we focus specifically on tech entrepreneurs. But I actually went out and I moved to Columbus, started a tech company, built it up, and sold it. And because of the frustration I had of trying to navigate sort of the local community and the lack of resources, I started Founders Factory. And I went out and talked to people that are coming out of Ohio State and want to be entrepreneurs and want to do stuff in the tech space, and other folks that are a few years past that, and said, what do we need to have here in order to keep you here so that you don't feel like you need to go to New York or Boston or Austin or Silicon Valley in order for you to do your thing? And I consistently heard three things. I need help, I need funding, I need capital. So I went out and raised funds, mostly from other like-minded entrepreneurs like myself that had some success. We all threw our money into a pot, and we've done 52 investments in the last 36 months. They said, more importantly, and this is consistent across all the conversations we had, is exactly what you're asking about is, I need advice, I need help, I need direction, I need guidance. And I want that from people that have been there and done that, not from academics and bureaucrats.
Because I'm willing to grind. I'm willing to
Right, and so that's why I started this Founders Factory thing, but we're focused in on the tech entrepreneur space. It sounds like you almost need like a music foundry or something like, or maybe that's what you guys are talking about.
We've been talking about a music conference. I was trying to encourage Joey to take his CSA and create like a 2-day conference, like, Music Business 101 conference that would be, bringing in, you can get the city to support it, to bring in some professionals from, the other cities that have the experience. That's what you really need is the experience to create a 1 or 2 day festival. Would you guys come to something like that? Yeah. Would you pay some money to come to see that? Not a lot, maybe $100, $150 to come to see something like that. Would you pay that?
Yes.
Because it takes that. It takes, I go to conferences all the time, all over the country, in different large and small. I prefer small ones. That's why I decided I wanted to do this, because I love small groups and I love smaller cities. Although I know this is the 15th largest city. Excuse me, sorry about that. But I like smaller groups. I wanted to share with you a book that I really love. It's called Making Music Make Money. Making Music Make Money. And it's written by my friend. His name is Eric Beale, B-E-A-L-L-E. He's one of the most articulate speakers on the subject of music publishing. I just love hearing him talk and teach. He teaches an online course at Berklee College of Music, but he also has a number of blogs online. So take a look at him for some guidance online. Everything is at your fingertips on the internet. So you can sit, I'm not very administrative, but you can tap on the internet and find out some stuff, right? Go to the ASCAP, BMI, and SESAC websites. Go to our frequently asked questions or our songwriter page. And we have the simple answers. We have something at the SESAC website. It's called SESAC EDU Education. I have a little brochure panel that actually I wrote. It's on there, and it's all like, what is a copyright? What is a performing rights organization? How do I get my songs copywritten? What does a publisher do? What are song splits? Just the basic lingo of our business. That's, in simple terms. But all of that can be learned too by traveling and going to different music conferences. But I think that Joey and his team here should develop their own little conference here. And that's another thing, and get the radio station behind it. That's another reason for people to go, oh wow, look at Columbus. Sure. They got this cool little event that goes on every year. I'm going to that. You get some key A&R people to come out and hear some of your great music, get some of your absolute best musicians to perform, get a great keynote speaker. Maybe you get someone that's famous from Ohio speaking at the panel or being one of your pillars of the conference. And start small, and make it a group and make it a great conversation. And maybe you do get the mayor to come in and get the mayor to claim this is Music Business Day in Columbus, Ohio. Not hard at all to get a proclamation. We get proclamations all the time, but it brings the mayor in. It brings the mayor in. It brings them into the fold and into what you're doing here and creating what you're trying to create here.
I have a specific response to your question. I think this is probably true for anyone who's in the same position, which most musicians are, being frustrated with where they are and where they want to be. I think the biggest thing is trying, and I had the same problem as a musician, and I sort of started solving it. I figured out exactly what type of artist I want to be. Just saying you want to be famous, I don't know if it's specific enough. Like the beautiful thing now about like where we are in the music industry is, like we were talking about this earlier, is you can actually be like a middle class musician. Maybe that's fine for you. It's definitely less risky than shooting for the stars. I mean, everyone wants to shoot for the stars, but there's a lot of different routes you can take as an artist. So I think like what I did, because I changed from being, I played jazz music for a long time, and there's tons of gigs, there's steady work for that, but there's not, there's only so far you can go. It's jazz music, not a lot of people like listen to that shit. Sorry, but it's great for restaurants, you know what I mean? I mean, yeah, me too, but like, it's not a huge, I think it makes up 3% of the record sales combined with classical music. Anyway, it's terrible. Yeah, but it's about finding it. It's about finding an artist that you want to be like, and then studying their path. That's a great way to do it. Like how did they get there? Work backwards and see what worked for them. Obviously, that can work for someone. Do you have the same skills that they have? Do you have the same appeal as a brand that they have? There's many different aspects to it, but it's definitely about having a more specific goal. Like, because that's the problem with all of us as creative people. It's like, man, I just want to jam, man. Like, that's not enough, dude. Like, I just want to be famous. Like, how do you want to be famous? No, I understand exactly. We're dramatic as well. That's why people are gravitate towards musicians. But it's really about finding a specific goal and working backwards. And it's like that with any business too. I mean, those are the parallels with being an entrepreneur and being an artist. I mean, that's how you have to think. And if you don't, you're never gonna you don't know where you're going, so how are you gonna get there?
Gentleman in the dark shirt, honestly. You get a couple questions for Linda, just to follow up on your comments on the PRO. If a musician performs at a venue that is unlicensed, first off, will they still get royalties or?
That's a very good question. I don't think so. I think if it's unlicensed, we don't pay on it.
And then the follow-up to that is by submitting the artist submitting, saying I played there. Now you as SESAC is going to come back to him and say, Joe Smith played here. You guys need to pay a license. Is that going to create
a problem?
A problem.
Well, yeah. I mean, if the venue is like adamant against paying for music, it does create a problem. And eventually, SESAC isn't really as aggressive as BMI and ASCAP, and we're not really aggressive in pursuing a $600 license. I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's too much money in legal fees. We'll continue to hound them with letters and try to get them to do the right thing by getting themselves licensed. But I know BMI and ASCAP are a little more aggressive than we are. They have a stronger, they're a bigger company, they have stronger legal teams, they have bigger legal teams. We just have bigger fish to fry, but once in a while they'll pull one out of the hat and they'll use it as an example, and they'll sue them. Generally, if a place is unlicensed, it's unlicensed by all three performing rights organizations. But if they're if it's a club, that's playing music legitimately every night, then do it. Don't bother with the little tiny coffee houses. If you're worried about, I shouldn't go. Don't let me speak on the record. But if you're worried about your buddy's club getting a phone call from the licensing agency, don't put him on it. Don't try to collect royalties on it.
By rule, what she's saying is that if you play music, I don't care if you're playing live music or recorded music, you're supposed to pay royalties. Right. If there's music being played over the speakers, whether it's from someone sitting in the corner playing acoustics, or you're playing the radio station, you're supposed to pay royalties. Wendy's has Muzak that is paid through Muzak, they pay the royalties. Kroger does that. So yes, it doesn't matter the size. If there's 25 people or 25,000 people, they're supposed to pay royalties. So yes, to sort of answer your question, yes, if you rat them out, they may not go after them. Believe me, BMI will. They will knock on the door, they will go back, they will walk in the door and be like, oh hey, do you guys play music here? Oh, you do? Great. Here, now you need to pay us. You've been served.
It's just the nature of the business.
I think we've talked a lot about what the city and what key players in the industry can do to make this a music city. What are some things that artists can do? I see a lot of great bands. I see a lot of great promoters doing things. What can we do to take some of these artists to put power in their hands and make them great local bands to maybe regional or national acts, in your guys' opinions? Or what are some things you've seen artists that are kind of, playing 200-person shows that bring them to like a touring act, or if they're getting paid through royalties for these kind of things?
I mean, there's a lot of different answers to that question, obviously, but it depends on the band, and it kind of also depends on what I was saying before about like what kind of artist you want to be, what kind of path you want to take. But I've seen, what I've noticed work is finding a really good manager that really understands the space, or then that can like spend a little bit more time on the other things outside of music, and maybe having a little bit of a team. Maybe it's getting more of your bandmates involved in that aspect of it. I know a lot of times maybe it's like the lead singer is kind of taking the reins on most of that type of stuff, and the drummer just kind of like shows up or whatever. Like that. It has to be a team effort. Everybody has to be on the same page. And like for instance, and you have to make sacrifices. I had a conversation with a girl in New Orleans a couple days ago. About she runs the licensing for a record label called Basin Street, and she also manages this amazing like indie rock, like Creole Cajun band. It's really awesome, called Sweet Cruise. But they tour a lot, and they're about to go on tour. They have a large tour. Their band is I think 8 people, and some of them have like families and stuff, and they had to sit down and have a really frank conversation and make sure that everybody was on the same page. I think I've been in so many bands that have disintegrated because people just didn't really ever communicate properly. It's like a relationship, really. It's like a real family. You guys have to be on the same page about where you want to go, what it's going to take realistically, and is everyone willing to do that? And you have to like agree upon that and then set out and do it. So, whatever that is, I don't know what, your band's path is or whatever, but like, I think that's the fundamental problem with a lot of bands, is that, there's not a goal, and then like, the goal isn't really talked about amongst everyone, and no one's ever really agreed to it. Like, how many times it's like, I didn't sign on for this, man. Like, this is what I signed up for. Like, it's like, let's figure out what we signed up for. Let's sign up for something.
Being in a band is hard.
Yeah.
If you think it's not, then you've never been in a relationship. Because it is being married to someone. It is being in a relationship, a love-hate relationship. It is insanely impossible to figure out what's going on sometimes because you don't communicate. There is no democratic process when it comes to a band. There has to be someone in charge that says this is our direction, and everyone else has to either agree with it or guess what? Join a new band. Okay, unless you want to be a soul singer-songwriter and you get to make all your own decisions and live your life the way you want to do it, you either have to compromise or you have to be that person that steps up and takes that control. Because we get to see bands all the time, like, oh my God, these guys are great, and you never hear from them again because that's exactly what happened, because I didn't sign up for this crap. And it's true, that is one of the biggest problems. And again, you have to sort of understand that it's a relationship, it's a commitment. What I always tell people is practice more. Okay? You want to get better? Well, then practice. Get better.
Good point.
Wow, what a concept. It takes X amount of hours to be an expert at anything. Okay? How do you think baseball players get to be in the majors? How many college athletes actually get into a major league sport? Does anyone know the percentage? It's really low. Okay? So guess what? People in bands, if you decide that you want to be in a band and you want to be famous, at what level of famous is acceptable? Practice more. Okay? Get better at your craft. Write better songs. Get better at the instrument you play. License your work. Take credit for it. But it's not going to be easy. You aren't going to get picked up on the street corner playing your guitar or your tambourine or something. Somebody goes, oh my God, I love your look. You're a rock star. It's not happening. Sorry. I hate to burst your bubble. Okay? We can play your music all day long. I tell this to bands, I tell this to advertisers. As the radio station, we're gasoline. That's what I am. I'm gasoline. If you have a good fire, I will make it burn bigger and brighter. If you have a bad fire, guess what? Call the fire department. Because it's going to be a big, bad fire. And I can only make it bigger. I can't make it better or worse. It is what you hand to me. If you're handing me something that's burning that's good, great. I'll make it burn bigger and better. It's a great bonfire. We're having a camp out. Fun. If it sucks, well, guess what? I'm burning the building down. Sorry, didn't mean to. You might want to call someone to put this thing out because this is a disaster. Okay? Practice your craft. Get better at what you do. Okay? And I can't emphasize that enough. Go play. Or don't go play. You can be successful and never tour. Okay? You can sell commercials all your life and never have to go on the road. Okay? You can have video game licensing because, well, you do great music for video games or for TV shows or commercials or anything else, and you never have to go into the light of day, ever. There's studio people that never do that. Look at Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo.
Yeah.
Perfect example, okay? Sure, he started Devo. Do you know where he makes all his money? I don't know, he made a thing called the Rugrats music. What? Yeah, that's who made the music for the Rugrats. The guy who created Devo. Okay? Wow, what a shock. But that's what works. You have to figure out what your acceptable losses are and what you're willing to do or not willing to do. If you want to tour and you want to stand on the stage in front of people because that's what your ego demands and drives you to do, then do it. And play. Play everywhere you can. Play in Columbus. Get out of Columbus. Play in Cincinnati. Play Cleveland. Play Indianapolis. Play Pittsburgh. Go, go, go. Don't stop. Okay? If you're comfortable doing that, then don't. Get great at your craft in your studio. Create music that you can then license for a song on a commercial. One of the girls that works in my office plays the band. Shocking. Their band just got a commercial for ESPN. Their royalty check was $25,000. She was like, we just got paid all this money. I'm like, wow, that's pretty awesome. They didn't expect it, but they sold it to a licensing company and said, hey, shop this. Shop my music. And someone bought it. Okay? So, yes, you can succeed, but you have to take all the right steps. And again, take credit for it, practice, get better at your craft, and sell your stuff.
Yeah, I have to just say something about that because it's so correct. I mean, like, thinking about your music and like whether it's a performance, a recording, it's a product, and it better be fucking awesome. Like, it can't be not good. Like, there's not really there's not room for mediocrity in this super saturated musical environment. So whether it is, you know, maybe you think your performance is great, but and if it's not, you know, like, people are not going to come back and see you. But maybe you're great at recording. Maybe you're much better at recording. You get really awkward on stage or something. Just, you need to be undeniable is the word I use a lot. And I think, like, you know, as a whole, as Columbus as a whole, as a music city, like, you know, it's about becoming undeniable. So undeniable that the mayor, like, has to say, like, okay, this is a fucking music city. We got to get behind this and, like, do something about it. But it's about being undeniably awesome at whatever the correct thing is whatever the product is that you're creating, because it is a product. But honing that craft is everything. There's not enough emphasis on that anymore, I think.
I have a question. So I just want to recap the panel discussion. It seems like producing fantastic, great music top of mind, having some sort of music conference that brings in industry leaders and A&R, and there's talk about technology fees with music licensing potentially, and then the music commission as well. Is that enough innovation? I mean, what are we?
That's a great place to start.
That's a big to-do list, but it's a great one.
There's 100+ people in this room. This is the start.
Yeah.
You're witnessing it. You're partaking in it. This is the start.
like signing the Declaration
You
of
all should
Independence.
join. If you're not members of the Columbus Songwriters Association, just because that's your one and only songwriter organization that's put together, or music organization, you all should just join. It's $35, right? Join to be a part of it. Join to be a part of the community, because I have a feeling that you're going to build and grow the CSA to expand more than just songwriters, but to musicians and being a voice, because you already are organized. You have 200 people. That's the start.
Linda Lorence, Tim Lincoln, Randy Malloy, Brooke Hall, thank you all so much. It was awesome listening to you talk today. I think we're essentially out of time, but would everyone please help me express our appreciation?
I also want to give a big shout out to Joey, man. This dude is awesome. This is very impressive.
I want to actually thank you guys for attending, because this is important. And this is the beginning of something that is great and special, and I want to thank you guys for attending, because that's important.
Just one more point really quickly. We want to encourage the dialogue to continue. If you've had a question, didn't get a chance to answer it, or you're like me, you think of an awesome question on the drive home, please reach out to Joey at howtobuildamusiccity.com. And we want to continue this dialogue. We want this to move this forward. You people are the signatories of the Declaration of Independence. Let's take the next steps. Thank you, Tim.
Well, tonight I'm at the Beehive Records in Grand Rapids.
Good, how are you doing?
Tomorrow I'll be at Cafe Carolina.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
oh, we might try to make it out to that.
yeah,
so.
sweet. It's on my events page, so.
Yeah, good luck.
Thanks.
I'm just like interested in the dynamic he would have had with the panel.